On the Gamebridge Ball State Cardinals Sports Network from Learfield. Welcome to This Week in Ball State Sports, a Ball State athletics podcast, highlighting the Cardinals athletic teams and administration each week, presented by Gamebridge. Here's the voice of the Cardinals, your host, Mick Tidrow.
Hey, Ball State fans, welcome back into episode 21 of This Week in Ball State Sports. And our first guest, as always, is Director of Athletics, Jeff Mitchell. Jeff, appreciate you as always jumping on.
Mick, always a pleasure. Thank you.
What's your week been like in the last 7 days? Because Ball State sports have been absolutely everywhere. There's been a lot of events in Worthen. There's been a lot of events outside of Worthen. What's it look like for you?
Well, it's been busy either being in Worthen watching our teams compete or following them, on the app, the Ball State app, or just watching on a stream, whatever the case may be. But it's been a lot of fun to follow the Cardinals in action over the past 7 days.
Cardinals in action indeed, especially on the basketball floor. 4-0 week. That's an impressive week. Women's basketball received votes in the coaches poll last week. We'll see what the polls bring this week. But those two programs look very good right now.
Yeah, they continue to be very resilient. Excited for the men as they continue to work through what's been a challenging year from a just a growth standpoint and playing a competitive schedule, and two good wins and have been playing well. Haven't necessarily had the results to show for it in some of those closer games a couple of weeks ago, but to dominate on the road at Buffalo the way they did, and then to play really well. I thought against Northern Illinois, who I know record-wise isn't great, but they're talented and posed a lot of problems and pose a lot of, not only for us, but pose a lot of problems for other teams. And I thought we handled that really well and secured a double-digit win over the weekend. And then on the women's side, just continued dominance by that program over their opponents. And, they just have an ability to finish really strong, and they did that again over the weekend at Eastern Michigan. And what an exciting game during the middle of the week here in Worthen. And then we got a big one coming up for the women on Wednesday, and of course they're at home again on Saturday as well. So a big week for them, and just a big week in Worthen generally coming up.
Ball State women's basketball hosts Kent State. Kent State's 7-1, only loss against Toledo. Toledo 7-1 in women's basketball. Their only loss against Ball State. So those three teams right now all in the battle for first place. Cardinals, of course, 8-0 in the Mid-American Conference this season. Come back to the men's side real fast. They've played a ton of close games in conference. The Akrons, the Toledos, the Central Michigans. Those games, everybody talked about how close those were, and Coach Lewis has talked about it too, just finishing late games. We've seen that now against Buffalo and NIU. How have you seen this team start to incrementally get better?
Well, I think they're more connected as a group and are trusting each other. I see that, at least from my perspective, of just watching their ability to communicate on the floor. And sometimes maybe the average fan doesn't see that. But, again, I think I've mentioned it before on this podcast, how I'm looking for teams who are connected and how they compete together. And I think our guys are doing that. I think on Saturday, the ball moved well. They were making hustle plays. And, again, against the talented team, we're executing a lot of that. And it was a short bench on Saturday. So those guys are really coming into their own in terms of knowing where each other may be on the floor, and then when things aren't going well, I mean, Northern Illinois made a run there in the late game, and the guys are beginning to say, okay, all right, we know that we can finish this off, and did that for. In a large way, I think proved to themselves that, hey, we're capable of winning these ball games, and so I think they needed that to experience that moment, to have a really strong performance throughout the game. It got close at the end, and they figured out a way to finish it. And winning's a habit, and so you gotta develop that habit, and that's one way to do it is to experience it, and they did. And so I continued to applaud them and their effort and their attitude as they go forward, and got another round of conference games coming up.
We talk about finishing late in games. Women's basketball's done that. They've had maybe close first quarters in the last few games, but then just like Toledo, Central Michigan, the game at Eastern Michigan, pull away win by 25. If it's close at the end of the first quarter recently, it hasn't been by the time the game ends. What are you seeing from the women's basketball team from the first to fourth quarters that's just allowing them to pull away from teams?
Well, they're playing their brand of basketball, and they're consistent in doing that. I think what we're seeing is that teams are taking their best shot against us, and the best way to do that is to do it right out of the gate in the first quarter. And so they may be throwing some wrinkles that are a little different from what we've prepared for, and so it takes a little bit. But our team is so connected and so disciplined in how they play their brand of basketball that they don't panic. They take the punch, they adjust, and then they pour it on, playing their brand of basketball. And it's been a recipe for success this season. And I think that may continue to be the case, as we go through the second round of conference play. But I think our team's prepared for it now. And, we are in a position to where we can just take those punches. It doesn't impact us very much, and then we just pour it on, the way we can, and it's fun to watch.
Fun to watch. Also, Ball State gymnastics. Last week we recorded just before they competed at home for the first time. They're going to be back at home on Sunday. I have to follow up. Did you bring your Squishmallows last week to gymnastics?
There were a couple of Squishmallows that came with the Mitchell family. We had a great time. It was fun. The ladies really enjoyed. I think the crowd, the fanfare. It was electric. And I think they feed off that energy. And then when they were having the opportunity to throw some of those Squishmallows into the crowd really got enthusiastic about it. A lot of people brought their own Squishmallows. So we were not the only ones that brought them. And it worked. It was fun. And those Squishmallows helped Ball State earn a gymnastics meet win. So really excited for that program as they continue to grow and develop. And, I think they've probably only just begun to scratch the surface of what they can accomplish this year. And talking to Coach Joanna Sallee and her staff, they just continue to be so encouraged by the hard work and the discipline that our team puts in every day, and they are awfully competitive, and look forward to their next event coming up.
Awfully competitive. Also, the men's volleyball squad not able to defeat Hawaii at home, but a couple big matches coming up this week. Loyola Chicago's in town, along with Penn State. Two more big opportunities for Ball State.
Yeah, they continue to play well. Again, the results maybe not are coming in the way we want them to, but they're competitive. Last night, as we record this on a Monday, that event against Hawaii was amazing. A huge crowd in Worthen, a lot of high-quality volleyball. And, again, it didn't go our way at the end, but I think we're seeing some progress. And Coach Donan Cruz, his staff, very patient with that group. A couple of new pieces to this team, and they're trying to find their way. And, again, as we approach conference play now, I think we're going to see some high-quality volleyball. We're already seeing it, but the type of high-quality volleyball is going to translate into the results we want, which are wins. I think that's coming. And it's just incredibly fun to watch because those guys are so powerful, so springy, lengthy, and it's just a fun for fans to watch.
And they're almost at full strength now, too, which makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference. And again, I think as that team continues to gel, as they continue to be more connected, I think you're going to see the results that we're looking for come out of their play. And you saw a lot of positive things out of their match against Hawaii. I think you saw the same thing at USC and against Stanford. In the sport of men's volleyball, and again, I'm no expert on it, but there's little margin for error. And teams that can capitalize on a mistake from the other team is the one that typically wins a set. We did that last night against Hawaii in the second set. They did it in the other three, and so we have to limit our mistakes, and then we have to capitalize on the other team's mistakes. And so I think our guys are continuing to be really motivated going into conference play coming up. We got a couple of other non-conference matches, big matches as well. You mentioned hosting Penn State later this week, and it's going to be fun. So we encourage all the fans to come out to Worthen. You can come to an event in Worthen every night this week as you listen to this, because this is dropping on a Tuesday. The rest of the week, you've got an event to come watch.
It's a lot happening in this building every day through Sunday. It is.
And, let's take the time to credit our facility staff and Isaac Shell, Christian Rich, also Gonzo Brajas and his staff. There's a lot of transformation that goes on in Worthen this time of year, converting the arena from a basketball court to a volleyball court to a gymnastics event and back, and sometimes overnight, because our teams are practicing on the floor. Of course, we're also using the Shondell Practice Center, which is so helpful, especially this time of year. But there's just a lot of moving parts to it, and there's a lot of organization that goes into it. I credit all of that staff for the wonderful work that they do so that our teams aren't impacted at all by the changeover. And it's a lot of work and sometimes some long hours, especially as we're converting every day, sometimes from gymnastics to basketball to volleyball. And they just do exceptional work. So I want to commend all of them for the work and coordination that they do together.
Flipping gears to a sport out of season right now, the football schedule just dropped for the next 3 years in the Mid-American Conference. Dates haven't been set, times haven't been set, of course, but what do you make of the opponents Ball State takes on?
Yeah, I think the pod system that we're doing now is beneficial for the league. Again, it's going to, I think we talked about this in an earlier podcast, what it's going to do is solidify the top two teams in the league to compete for a conference championship, and thereby having one of the two best teams in the league compete or be eligible potentially for a playoff spot. I know some people are not going to like the fact that we've gone away from division play, but I really do think it's going to enable the league to showcase the top two teams in the conference. In terms of our pod with Ohio and Miami, what terrific rivalry games right out of the gate that we're going to have with those two teams. And then I think the way the league is constructing the schedule so that we play everybody in the Mid-American Conference at home and away within a 3-year period is going to allow our fans, to see everybody, and it's going to create hopefully some parity across the league in terms of competitive play. So we'll see how that plays out. The league has announced those home and away pairings for the next 3 years, and we are preparing now for the 2024 season. So looking forward to it.
It'll be here before we know it. It always happens really fast, and you can check out all of that online. We'll have scheduled dates, times that all come forward in the coming months, coming weeks for Ball State football. All right, jumping back into sports that are in action. Both tennis programs are playing, swimming and diving in action. Track and field's been in action. It hasn't just been one or two sports. We've got a ton happening.
Yeah, it's that time of the year. And, men's tennis has a pair of wins. And women's tennis looking to get their first win of the season. Excited for that program as they have a new team, have a new coach, and that you always go through growing pains sometimes when you have a lot of new, and that's the case right now with women's tennis. Men's tennis continues to roll. They're off to a pretty good start to the season, defeating Xavier this past week before dropping a match to Dayton. And track and field had some great results over the weekend in Indianapolis. And I think Adrian Wheatley and his group are doing a great job, and excited to see how they finish the indoor season and how that season bleeds into the outdoor season. And then, we've got the golf starting up in the next couple of weeks. And then your softballs and your baseballs are right around the corner too. So we've got everything going right now, and it's really exciting.
You can check it all out, ballstatesports.com, 888-BSU ticket for events. Jeff, is there anything you want to say before we let you go?
Yeah, I failed to mention swimming and diving. So both those teams are deep in action right now, and both men's and women's swimming and dive programs have had some big wins in the last week or so. So a credit to Jay Agnew and his staff and those teams, what they're doing. Those student athletes work really hard, and again, it's another one of those student athletes, kind of like, or another one of those programs, kind of like gymnastics, that practice in an area that doesn't see a lot of daylight, and then they get to their competition, everybody sees them, and they just explode on the scene. So credit to the discipline and the work ethic and the attitude and effort that all those teams put forth on a daily basis. So proud of them, and proud of Ball State athletics generally, and our coaches and our student athletes, as we are in a very busy time of the academic and athletic calendar. And it could not be any more fun to watch them compete and watch them continue to develop as human beings. So I'm really appreciative of the opportunity we have to influence their lives, and look forward to continuing to watch them play.
We appreciate you, Jeff. Thanks for joining this week.
Mick, thanks so much. Go Cards.
Sometimes it's not the moment. It's the moment before the moment. The moment you make a choice. The moment you take control. The moment only you can own. Gainbridge lets you invest on your terms. So you're not only in charge of this moment, but all the moments to come. Start investing now at Gainbridge.io.
Welcome back inside episode 21 of This Week in Ball State Sports, and we're happy to have Brady, Sallee of Ball State Women's Basketball join us. Coach, before we really get started at the nitty-gritty of basketball, I am super impressed with your ability to get a group involved with ski.
Yeah. I wish I knew what I had done. It became just I don't even know how it started, but just kind of the team laughs at me because every now and then I'll throw out, some song that I should know, and they'll kind of all look around like, how do you know that? And it's the beauty of working around 18 to 22 year olds. You have a tendency in some ways to stay young. And so there was it was a while ago, and I threw out, just in the middle of a practice or something, I yelled ski ye, and they all lost their minds. And so it was just kind of a spur of the moment, clearly a big win against Toledo. And I told the assistants, I'm like, hey, get that song, the radio edit. I'm smart enough to understand that. Get it on that big boom box, and we kind of queued it up, and the team went crazy. But then, what's happened since then has been nuts. And so I think somebody was saying it's over 700,000 views right now. So I guess that's good.
That's a good number. That's healthy.
Yeah. See, I don't even know any of that. I'm like, okay, what's good? And they're like, yeah, it's so. And then the artist quotes it and writes by whatever all that means, But it was cool. Our bus went crazy the other day when we were driving home, and they saw that our bus was nuts. So it's been fun. And again, I said it maybe in the presser, those moments in the locker room after a big win and just letting it loose, and it is maybe the most fun as a coach that you have, because it is genuine. It's you're not thinking about who's videoing or who's doing it. It's just you and your players and your staff that have worked so hard. And winning's hard, man. And if you forget to enjoy it and you forget to appreciate it, you're just missing out on what's beautiful about sport.
I'm impressed that you had a voice left after the game to get in there to yell ski ye, because you did that pretty methodically. You had a plan. It looked like you had a plan.
Yeah. No, we had a plan. When I said certain, I was just going to say, okay, it was a good game. And as soon as I said that was a good game, they were going to start playing it, and I was going to yell ski ye. And, it kind of cracked there a little bit because, your voice goes through it in a game, especially as loud as Worthen was that day. But no, it was a lot of fun, and it's one of those things that I know the team had a ton of fun with, and it just keeps on rolling.
We just need to get the rest of the assistant coaches now on board with singing. Is that going to happen?
Well, listen, so I carry them in a lot of ways, right?
We'll make sure they close their ears for this part of the pod.
I mean, I ultimately carry those assistants, whether it's dancing or singing, athletically. I can probably list 20 to 30 things that they're an anchor with daily, but I rise above the occasion.
This is 4 minutes, and I think we could stop it there, to be completely honest with you. No, Coach, basketball at Ball State just continues to elevate. We see what you guys have done this year, so far 8-0 in the conference. When you boil everything down, we've talked about it a little bit, but what have you seen the last couple of games to make this team just click where everything needs to click?
Coming out of that Toledo win, as a coach, you're worried about the emotions, and you're worried about that cloud nine mentality, and being able to ground them again and get them focused on, two opponents that hadn't had good years. And it would have been easy for our players to look at Miami and look at Eastern and kind of, not think that it was going to be much of a game. And it was just the opposite. We've talked about it all year that, big wins are only big wins if you do something with them, right? So that Georgia win, we talked about it. Some of those wins on the road that we had at St. Louis, at Western Kentucky, we had to build on it. We had to do something with it. And so our kids, they've heard that mantra before, and they understand it, and they knew the task at hand. And, it's almost as impressive to me that we were able to come into that Wednesday, Saturday swing with no days off. We played Sunday, no days off Wednesday, no days off Saturday. And don't forget, we hadn't had a day off since the Wednesday or the Thursday before that Toledo game. So it was like 10 straight days on the court. And we were able to win by an average of 30. Again, like at times you get a little bit numb because you do win easy. But it's not easy. Winning is not easy at this level. And I'm impressed with our team's ability to at times make it look easy. But I think if you asked any of our players, Saturday was not easy. Our tank was on empty, and, we had to battle, and then we knew, a run was going to come, and it came in a big way. And we went from, about an 8-point game to a 20-point game in the matter of about 3 minutes, and game was over. So there's just a real maturity level. There's a real experience level with this group that they understand who they are and how we win, and they've been really good at that part of it so far.
Coach, looking a little bit big picture, you mentioned Toledo a couple of times. Jeff and I were talking a little bit earlier, and he just said that he has had a lot of people reach out to him about that win regarding your team against Toledo on the national scale. When you look at that, what does that mean on that national scale to do that and then have CBS Sports Network coming back in against James Madison and to hear what is going on around this program?
Yeah, it's hard for me in the middle of what we're in to really digest it all, because as soon as Toledo was done, I was at home, got a bite to eat, and right back into getting ready for Miami. So there's just not a whole lot of time. But I've been doing this long enough. I certainly can appreciate the well thought out plan of, hey, let's give women's basketball in the MAC some spots. And they did it with Kent and Northern, and they did it with us in Toledo. And as a league, what you hope is whoever's in that spot, they show out. It's a well played game. It's everything you want it to be, and certainly our game against Toledo in terms of us, it was. And I think the crowd played out really well. It was loud. I mean, it was a really well done deal. And I think there's there's a correlation to us getting that exposure and the next week getting 6 votes in the top 25. And I had coaches reach out to me that said, hey, I apologize. I haven't watched you guys play until I could flip it on CBS Sports real easy. And I watched 12 minutes of you all play. You're really good. I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it, but it takes that kind of exposure. And I think a lot of people for a lot of years have known our league's good. We've got some good teams in it, clearly. From year to year, we've been one of them. Toledo's been one of them. But until you really sit down and you watch it, you may not realize it. And so that's what something like that can do, not only for our program, but for the league. And now we get to do it again against James Madison, and just thrilled for it. And I'm just excited for our players because they're the ones that have put in the work to do this. And not just the ones that we currently have on our team. I mean, there's the players that have come before them that have built this thing and gotten this thing to a point where CBS wants to be here.
A couple of those are on your staff right down the hallway.
100%. And so this really is, a program-wide step. And it's one that we not only want to get to, but we want to maintain it and build on it.
Coach, you mentioned the 10 straight days having players on the court, come back from Eastern Michigan. Now Kent State's on Wednesday. How do you make sure they have enough time to recover, but also get ready for a game like Kent State?
Well, the good news, we had Sunday off after our game against Eastern Michigan, which we needed. So I think, the way our league schedule is built, you usually play Wednesday, Saturday, you have Sunday off, and it's a real routine, and those Sundays are true days off, no classes. Our kids can really veg and get their bodies to recover. We needed this Sunday for that. So, we'll be fine moving forward, and I think from here on out, we won't be in a stretch like that really until it's time for Cleveland, and then you'll have a pretty good stretch of basketball in there. But it's it's a little bit of weight room work. It's a whole lot of training room work, and then they've got to eat and sleep. They've got to take care of themselves in this grind. That part becomes really, really important.
Coach, how are you seeing this team get better this year?
Well, I think there's a difference defensively, clearly, with, everybody sees what Nyla Hampton does, but the way it's elevated Allie Becky's defense, you look at her steal numbers and you look at what she's doing along with Nyla. You're watching Maddie Bischoff sit down and defend really good players. Marie Kiefer's always been a block shot artist, but against Miami, she was guarding their point guard. She was guarding their 2, their 3, their 4, and she was sitting down and she was just fine. Her confidence level defending on the perimeter has grown. And so I think it is that commitment to what we're doing on that end of the floor. And, at the same time we're being disruptive, I think we're playing very disciplined. We're not putting teams on the free throw line a ton, and so we're making them earn their points. We're not giving up a ton of offensive rebounds where they can get easy ones. So you're really having to work for every score against this team. And I think that wears on people on top of the pressure that we can put on them. But it is just, I think we've been a good offensive team the last few years. I think what you're seeing now is a top of conference level defensive team as well.
Coach, we had the chance to witness something very unique. Nyla Hampton, Allie Becky each score 1,000 career points. Not in the same season, the same game against Toledo. How special was it for you to be able to witness something like that, be a part of something like that?
Yeah, as it was happening, I'd heard scuttlebutt in the hallway. Nobody really gives me that info because I'm just focused on what I'm trying to do. But I'd heard scuttlebutt in the hallway about Nyla being close. And
I don't even know what that word means, by the way.
Yeah, maybe I'm showing my age. I don't know. I just, a little bit of, water cooler talk, just that kind of info. So I'm glad I can educate today. But anyway, I'd heard him talking, so I knew she was close. I don't think everybody knew Allie naturally was going to get there and all of those kind of things. But when she had that big game, at 30, whatever, and now all of a sudden it went from, it's going to happen in a couple weeks to, it's going to happen in the next game, and so it just kind of presented itself. And, the cool thing about it, looking back, is it was in a big game. It was on national TV. It was in front of a great crowd, and they did it together. And I think if you ask both of them, that even made it all the more special, because they didn't necessarily share the spotlight, but they had the spotlight together. And those two, I think, have become the best backcourt in our league. And so for them to be on that stage and get that accolade on the same night is storybook.
Coach, and it feels like, from how the community, the team, everybody has embraced Nyla Hampton, that she's played with Ball State for her entire career, just the way that it's been received. And that was really cool to see too.
Yeah, I mean, she's an easy kid to fall in love with. I mean, she's just a great human. I mean, my own son wanted her jersey, so that tells you her impact on this place. And I wish she'd have been playing with us for a few more years, because she sure does impact a basketball game in so many different ways. But, I mean, just this past Saturday, I mean, she's just guarding somebody normally, and she picks them at half court and goes down a huge bucket. She's a one-man press at times, so she's a load of a talent, but she's an even better teammate. And, I saw this, some social media post or something that was just a phrase that said, great teammates make great teams. And I think that's a perfect quote for the basketball team I'm coaching. It's a group of 14 great teammates, and we happen to be a pretty good team too.
Coach, before we let you go, is there any chance we can get one more ski-yee?
Ski-yee!
Thanks for listening to This Week in Ball State Sports, presented by Gamebridge. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Gamebridge Ball State Cardinals Sports Network.